Well, I guess you need to add yourself to the channel before you can start up. But anyhow, welcome. Hi, everybody. This is Lee, the Cold War Prepper, and welcome to our Monday night chat. I'm hoping to get some real good interviews here in the near future. I just have been kind of recalcitrant. I tell you what I'm going to do. David Lynn Prepper is on here. I see him on here tonight. Butch Graves is on here tonight. We've got some fantastic people. So I'm just going to go ahead and post the link. And if anybody feels like they are so inclined to join me on this for discussion, introduce your channel or anything like that, there's the link. Just click on it. I'll recognize you and add you to the discussion and put you on live. I kind of figured that since we don't have a person scheduled to interview tonight, if nobody wants to join me on here and talk about their channel, hello Clarity Jane, then probably what I can do is I've got kind of a discussion set up in the banners. I just finished reading another fantastic book, and so this one is once again by Dr. Bradley, Arthur T. Bradley down here. It's backwards, so this finger. Arthur T. Bradley, PhD. He is the NASA expert on EMPs and solar attacks. And fantastic little read, not that much. Very technical, lots of formulas and everything else, and just unbelievable. We can discuss this. We can discuss the Philadelphia water system and the problems that are going on there. So pretty much up to what you all would like to do. Let me know which direction you would like to go. This is kind of for you. And we could also just do straight questions and answers for the evening. There's one of my fantastic moderators. Hello, Tofu. And Diana, too. Welcome. Let me see who else. The Rugby 9, welcome. And so Hello, Tofu is going to start showing everybody's who is in the discussion on chat. They're going to show their channels. What I like to do is I would like to see us all support each other and grow as much as possible. There's one of my favorites, Triple G Farms. Welcome. And I've driven through his home area about 4 times in the last week. And my wife will probably be heading up that way again here in the very near future, but I'm going to stay here at home and keep the old homestead safe from all the alien intrusions, now that those UFO files have been declassified. Yes, Dr. Bradley does have a YouTube channel. I think he calls it EMP Doctor. Hello, Tofu. Could you look at that and see if you could find Dr. Bradley's channel? I think it's Dr. Arthur T. Bradley, and I think it's EMP Doctor is the name of his channel. But fantastic book. So let me know, what would you all like to do? Which direction would you like to go? Hello, the Rugby. Welcome. So for those of you, if this is your first time here, we'd really love to have you subscribe, and we'd like to have you hit that thumbs up. Hey, there's another one of my favorites, Texas Redleg. Haven't seen him in quite a while. He's been very, very busy with work. So having him here is quite an honor. Scott Hummer, of course, and Karen LeMaine. Hey, Texas Redleg, let me put that out there again. So if anybody would like to join me on screen here, and Texas Redleg could probably do it. As we discuss these things, we can kind of get some ideas. He is ex-artillery and ex-criminal investigation division in the military. And so then he got out and he got into a job as law enforcement. Doesn't live that far away from me, but always has good thoughts and a good point of view. So he does kind of come at it from the law enforcement perspective. So, well, let me tell you one thing that has happened today that I find kind of amusing, intriguing, whatever we want to call it. This morning, Stephen C. Smith read a portion of book 1 of his book, of his Snowmont series, The Reversion. And it's basically when The EMP happens. Then 2 or 3 days later, so Mike and Christian is the hero's nephew, raised by his uncle, and he's working in law enforcement. He's in a hospital setting, getting ready to leave. Mike realizes that it's an EMP or a solar flare as well. He is an ex-Marine sniper. He's got his long gun with him. The two of them hook up, and Christian says, "Hey, David Len, so the link, if you would like to join us online and talk about your channel, is right here. So just click on that, and I can add you to the screen." So anyhow, so the two of them hook up. They become good friends. On day 3 after the EMP, so let's call it EMP or CM, coronal mass ejection, CME plus 3. They come across 3 guys trying to rape 2 women, and they're holding the husband at bay. So it turns out that it's a judge, his wife, and then his daughter, who's just graduated from Kansas in Lawrence Law School. And so this is a very violent scene. And so the whole theme about Stephen's discussion was, are you prepared to kill if necessary in a post-apocalyptic world? And gosh, you know what? I have seen 3 other channels pick up on that and want to talk about that this afternoon and this evening. Just unbelievable how popular that has become, that discussion. But anyhow, let's get into this one. I think there's a couple things here that are going to knock your socks off that are just really great. So what I'd really like to focus on are what happens when a CME or a EMP happens. And so let me, and I know that Texas Red Leg can throw his 2 cents worth in here too, because he has the same experience that I do. But let's talk about what happens. Is, in my personal opinion, the reason that people want us is they want to, number 1, do away with our form of government. Number 2, get access to our resources. So if we get into a nuclear conflagration, then I don't think it's going to be ground bursts, because when you have a ground burst, that's when you have the preponderance of radioactive fallout, and that's going to contaminate an area for quite a while. Depending upon the agent that's being used. So I believe, we're going to have mostly air bursts like what we had over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, they did have residual radiation in a very small pocket, the direct downpour. They had something they called black rain. And what that was basically the explosive material that became fallout, but it was contained right there within that cone of where the explosion was. So you didn't have massive amounts of fallout going out throughout Japan as you would if you had a ground burst. And so in my personal opinion, if we are to be attacked with nuclear weapons, they're going to be all air bursts, and all this stuff that you're afraid of with fallout and everything else are going to be extremely minimal compared to what they could be. I think that also the vast majority of us also know that going for the fallout is going to cause the radioactive winter and the nuclear winter and all that kinds of stuff. And we probably, that would be the annihilation of the earth, basically. I think most countries are aware of that and want to avoid that as much as possible. So I think it's going to be mostly air bursts. Now, I think that a nuclear conflict is going to be a third choice. I think first choice is going to be, why not do a cyber attack? And if they can accomplish through a cyber attack what they would do with everything else, then that would be the easiest way to do it, because you can do it just by a code here or there from your home country, and you can put us back into the ice age, or as Texas Red Leg is saying, the frontier days. And I believe that's exactly where we'll be. So that would be number 1. So they can reroute stuff on SCADA, which is the control system that routes all the electricity throughout the United States. I've heard people say that if you take out 7 critical nodes or transfer stations, that you can basically wipe out the U.S. of electricity, because it's going to backfeed on itself and everything else. And that's highly probable. The second one, if I did not do a cyber attack, then my second choice would be to do some sort of an aerial, or what they call high altitude HEMT or HEMP, electromagnetic pulse. So, and that's basically what could have been done with that balloon that was over us here about a month ago. So yes, Little Lone Prepper, you are absolutely right. The EMP Commission said that if you take out the electrical power system to the United States, that within 1 year, 90% of the population will be dead because of our dependence, not only upon electricity itself. Hello, bus stop, and welcome. But because of the things that we have dependent to it. For example, when I sleep at night, and it's not CPAP, it's I just use straight oxygen. I have to have straight oxygen at night. Once the sun goes down, my body does not process oxygen in my lungs as well as it does during the daytime. I have to have electricity to run my oxygen concentrator. We have to have electricity, as Bill Forstchen points out in his book, 1 Second After, to keep insulin cold. So there are people who are dependent upon CPAPs. There's all these different things that we are dependent upon. Wow, 31 degrees tonight. You must be up in Wyoming area or somewhere like that. I saw that whole Northwest corridor is going to be way below average for the next couple of days. Yeah, Texas Redleg says, think about dialysis patients. They're gone. So we're going to have probably 90% of the population will be gone within a year, and that's very, very simple. How many people are dependent upon medications, blood pressure medications and everything else? So you won't have the manufacture of those. Of course, most of those are manufactured overseas anyway, but you won't have the distribution of them. So what is available at your local pharmacy is all that you're going to have. There's not going to be any new shipments or new supplies or refilling your prescriptions. It's just going to run out. So an EMP, CME, or a SCADA attack, any one of those three is going to wipe us out. And then afterwards, you can be taken over without too much resistance, because let's go through some of the things that are going to happen. So anyone dependent upon a machine with a let me see if I can get that up here. Anyone dependent, probably what he meant to say was, he does like I do. Every once in a while, you get excited, you hit the return, expecting to go down to the next line, and instead it transmits it out. But anybody who's dependent upon a machine, an electrically operated machine, let's put it that way. So let's take a look at all the things that we're going to lose as a result of an EMP or CME. Whoa. Let me get back up here to comments. I don't know what happened, but I lost the comments. There we go. Okay. Let me see what happened. I lost comments. Well, geez. I went to a totally different screen. I have no idea where I am. And see if that does it. I still can't see the comments. Oh, well. Gosh, I am so sorry, people. I want to see your comments, but I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Have no idea what I've done wrong. I know they said they were, I saw it for just a second. And let me get back here, exit full screen. That didn't do it. There we go. Okay, now we can go back here and cancel. There we go. Yay, we're back. Okay. So let me catch up with the comments and I'll go into my slides. So dry ice is way too cold. You're absolutely right, except When I had my disaster response trailer, and I served food for things like Katrina, Wilma, and Rita, and all those others. The secret is cold air goes down. So if you put dry ice on the bottom, then the items above it stay below 40 degrees, but not frozen unless they're in direct contact with the dry ice. However, if you put the dry ice on top, then it keeps everything below it at 0 degrees, which is what they consider the freezing. So 40 degrees is considered, anything below 40 degrees is considered cold. Anything 0 and colder is considered frozen. Although with insulin, you want to keep it above 32. So they want it in that 32 to 40 range. Yeah, so we're going to have hospitals and everything else is going to be totally devastated. Thank you, patience. Thank you, Tofu. You are fantastic. I owe you a dinner whenever you come here to the Austin area. Let me see. All right, so let's take a look at the banners that I have kind of created here. So we're, of course, with an EMP or a CME or a cyber attack, we're going to lose electrical power. And so what does that mean? It means we're going to lose communications. We're going to lose all of our financial devices. All of your banking information is kept on computer databases. So you won't be able to go in and withdraw any funds from your bank or anything else. Most of our transactions are credit card. You won't be able to go buy anything because that's, the electronic systems for the processing with credit cards won't work. So anything in the financial realm, if you don't have cash or precious metals, you are SOL as far as getting anything. Of course, petroleum and natural gas distribution, as well as processing and everything else, they will not be available for quite a while. I'll tell you what, Diana, too, what I will do is I'll ask Triple G Farms to concentrate on, to comment on that. He's a pharmacist, and so he can help us with the different types of insulin. So then you've also got petroleum and natural gas. Of course, there won't be any pressure in the pipelines. You won't be able to, there won't be any electricity to pump it out from underneath the underground storage tanks. Then transportation system is going to be totally shut down. So one of the things that's really unique here is when I was working in the electric power production and distribution system, one of the things I found out was on one of our coal-fueled fire plants that powers Central Texas goes through a 1 mile long train load of coal every 3 trains a week. So that's about every day and a half, 2 days, 2 days and a third, 2 1/3 days. It goes through a 1 mile long train of coal. And so we won't have that. There won't be any distribution of coal to the power plants, and so that's going to be down. Probably the only thing we'll have running, if it hasn't fried the wires and the substations and your converters, transformers, are going to be solar, wind, and nuclear. It's going to have a dramatic impact on the distribution of food, where you want it to go, the cleanliness of water, so water extraction, purification, distribution, all of that's going to take some dramatic hits. Gosh, I've got to turn my mouse on. It's the down arrow is not cooperating with me. Come on, mouse. There we go. Okay. So sewage, trash collection is going to be impacted. Sewage is going to be backed up, so you got to be prepared for that. Emergency services, medical services will be severely impacted. Law enforcement won't be able to get to you. You won't be able to notify them when you have law enforcement issues. And so, so what we knew is we have to take into consideration, these are all the things that can go wrong. So what are we going to do as far as developing a plan? Hello, South Florida DCO. So let me see here. People who rely on military scooters may need to, or mobility scooters may need a manual wheelchair as a backup. it might be a good idea for people to have canes, walkers, or crutches. Yes, absolutely. And I've got several here that I'll probably be passing out. Don't have a wheelchair, but I am thinking about getting one of those walkers with the seat built into it. Um, those cooling things on nuclear heat and electric plants. Okay, so those are called cooling towers. Okay, so what happens is you're using steam to run through a turbine. So you're whether it be a diesel or a natural gas or a coal fired, you've got a source of heat. In a nuclear reactor, it's the nuclear reaction, okay, that provides the heat. Then you have a source of fresh water. That's why you almost always see these major um, power plants on the banks of a river, the ocean. They're going to be somewhere close to a very large supply of of water that they can suck into the power plant, run it through that heat generator, which converts it into steam. Then that steam goes through the turbines. Then you have these big cooling towers, and what it has is there are spray nozzles on the inside, so that as that steam is then pushed through, you send it up into the cooling towers, and then it goes in and it condenses back into water. Once it condenses back into water, now about 30% of it actually escapes off as steam, but 70% of it's recovered as water. Then that water is sent over to another cooling pond where it's going to go from near boiling temperature down to regular temperature, and then it's re-injected back into your water source. So those big towers are cooling towers, and all they're doing is converting the steam back into water. They're trying to get it cool enough to where it can go back as water. Let me see here. Good question. Thank you, Tracy. So hopefully it doesn't last long. Considering my son is a type 1 diabetic, I'm EMT certified, but I need power to keep his insulin cool in the summer. Yes. And so we have a brittle type 1 here in the family. And so that's what prompted me to get my whole house solar system. I also have from Lionbridge a solar powered refrigerator freezer. I think I paid $700 for it, but along with the solar panel. And so I can put that out in the backyard, and it will have it's got a 1.5 cubic foot area where you can keep things your choice of either cool or frozen. And I got that from Wellbots. That was there was a special they had a little while ago. What's his name? Pinball Preparedness had a special deal, and so I bought this refrigerator freezer from him. What I've been doing, and I've shown it in some of my older haul videos, is I've been getting small trays of ice cubes. And I figure if nothing else, then what I can do is I can make the ice cubes, use the ice cubes in a cooler to keep the insulin cold if I have to. And then I can sell the rest of the ice. And if I'm the ice distributor on the street, I can probably get anything I want. But let's see here. So yes, absolutely. Dry ice is at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So what you want to do is remember that hot air rises, cold air sinks. So if you have your dry ice on top of anything, it's going to freeze anything that is down below. Also, anytime you have anything in direct contact with dry ice, you're going to have that. So if you have any kind of a buffer, let's say just a sheet of cardboard or something like that, um, between your dry ice and the product you want to keep cool, and you have the dry ice down below and the item you want cooled up above, that will keep it below 40 degrees. It won't freeze it, but it will keep it above 40 or below 40 degrees. Which is what in the health industry they consider, or in the food health inspection industry, they consider to be safe. Okay, so yeah, the rollators, yeah, Mitch J mentioned that. So yeah, that's what I'm probably going to have to get for me. I talked to my acupuncturist this morning, and I have now used the maximum amount of acupunctures I can for the first 3 months of the year. So now I have to go to once a month instead of once a week. And I really don't want to get those shots that they want to stick into my spine. I don't care for those at all. So we'll find some other ways to do that. Um, okay, so what are some of the things we need to make plans for? Um, so let's talk about food, meal planning, acquisition, storage. So make sure you get plenty of food ahead of time. Right now, I think that we are so close to having the need for food that I'm going to recommend that you avoid the expensive freeze dried and dehydrated foods unless you get, golly, it did it again. Unless you get something. I know what it is. I touched my pad on my. I touched the pad here and did something. So anyhow, um, there we go. Um, but you're going to have to probably spend your money on canned goods, beans, rice, things like that. You don't want to spend. You want to get as much food as possible for your bang for your buck. So my recommendation is you don't spend it on the expensive um, stuff like freeze dried and gosh, the most expensive of all of them is going to be MREs, and they are only good for that one meal. Or MRE is good for you. I guess you could make it for a day, but that's going to be an awful lot of money for a very little return. Cans of Denny Morse beef stew and chili and things like that. I think that's where you're going to get your greatest buck for your greatest product for your buck right now. Um, Yes, yes, they will work because they're not powered by anything but your human, your strength. It's just they got brakes on them, they got a seat underneath and four wheels, and so I probably will get one here in the very near future. Let me see down here. And Simon Templar, hello, welcome. Let me see if there's anything else here. Yeah, Denny Moore. They said that somebody said that they found a can that was like 30 or 40 years old, and they opened it and it was still edible. And so they do have a fairly long life expectancy if you keep them in a cool, dark place. And that's going to be with any of your canned goods. That's why you put them in a pantry with a closed door. You want them cool and dry. Uh, and that's what's going to keep them for you. MREs, no, well, MREs are very expensive. I mean, Helen and I went to the commissary down at I think it was at Randolph. Yeah, we went down to Randolph. We went down to the JAG at Fort Sam Houston to do our wills, and so we stopped at Randolph while we were there. And I noticed that one MRE was $14, and at the commissary. So you're talking about an awful lot of money. You could buy a case of chili for that price. You have a lot left over. Um, so I mean, I enjoyed them. Somebody just did that with a. I put up my haul video just earlier, and somebody said to try it with Cheetos or Cheez-Its or something, and we'll have to try that. Um, yes, and so look at any place you can get a lot of food for a rather small price. Um, So as we continue on here, water collection and food and purification and storage. So especially those of you who are living in apartments or who live in suburbia, maybe even those of you who live in large metropolitan areas, how are you going to collect your water? For me, it's a 1 mile walk from here to the river. And of course, there's that river valley. So we're going to go down about 250 to 300 feet in elevation. And I had my daughter buy me one of those little red wagon, the garden wagon type things, 2 years ago for Christmas. And then all of a sudden, after I broke my hip, I had this sudden, realization that a 70-year-old with a broken hip is not going to last too long going 1 mile and 300 feet down in elevation to get 10 gallons of water to bring it back up. And I'm susceptible to intruders or bad guys the whole way. I said, this just does not make a very good sense as far as a water collection idea. So that's why I'm having the rain catchment system installed here at the house. Is how can I catch the rain and put it into some containers that I can store it in. So then I also have to consider that's dirty water. So I've got pretty close to 400 gallons of dirty water. So now I have to make that water clean. So, something like a Survivor Filter Pro or a Big Berkey or an Alexa Pure or something like that, plus plenty of replacement filters so that I can make sure that I have a way of processing the water and making it potable. Then, of course, if you transfer that water from your big container, either the 35 gallon or the 350 gallon, once I transfer that to something where I'm going to carry it in to put it into the Berkey or into the Survivor Filter Pro, that becomes a contaminated carrying device. So I'm going to have to mark it with like a D for dirty water or something like that, so that I never put clean water into it because I've had dirty water in it in the past. So you want to keep your dirty water dirty and your clean water clean, and then have that separation of your water purification system so that you don't get the two confused. Let me see what we got going on here with comments. Okay. Ooh, that sounds like a good idea. Beef stew on top of ramen. That sounds really good. And mix the beef flavoring packet into the stew. Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. I'll have to come back and visit this and write that down. Yes, and so that's a very good point, Diana, too, is that most canned foods are going to have the water already there. So if you're going to be using dehydrated or freeze-dried foods, you're probably going to have to add an extra gallon per person per day, or I'm sorry, gallon per day, just to rehydrate the foods in order to cook it. Whereas if you rely a lot on canned goods, then that's going to have the water already in it. But you still want to have a little bit extra water because you might have some beans, rice, or things like that you want to cook at a later time too. Now, the disadvantage, I'll be totally honest with you, there is a big disadvantage with canned goods. And I'm not worried about the shelf life right now because we just need to make it through the next year or 2 or 3. But that's going to be weight. So, make sure you have sturdy shelving. Probably one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my prepper journey was getting some of the cheaper plastic shelves and then putting too much weight on them with plastic canned goods and things like that. So you want to make sure that you have good quality shelving. And that's going to be one of the first things you really need to invest in is how are you going to store your canned goods? Yeah. So there are some hand operated ones. My grandmother had the old hand pump, but most of them nowadays are electrical. My sister-in-law, we just went to her husband's funeral here last Tuesday, and she has electric pumps. And so when they have storms up in the area and don't have electricity, she can't have water. Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah, so what I do is I've got a coffee filter basically on top in the filter system that goes into the container. Then I use another coffee filter when I take it from the bottom spigot and put it into my carrying device. So I'm filtering it through a second coffee filter again, just for purposes of trying to get as little contamination into the water as possible. Then I bring it inside and put it into either a Survivor Filter Pro or a Big Berkey. Now, both of those have decimal point of microns, and so you're not going to get any mosquito larvae. The mosquito larvae are going to be a lot larger than the pores on either one of those two purification systems. But if you just leave that inside and you don't process it real quick, yes, you have a very big danger of having mosquitoes inside. which is why my latest haul video, you notice that I did get some more insect repellent and, or no, insecticide is what it was. Um, Fantastic. Yeah, we just talked about that last week or week before, Mitch, and great. You're well ahead of the rest. That's going to be fantastic. Um, I wholeheartedly agree, and that's going to be primarily because of the weight. I think it's like 8 pounds per gallon. Um, so here's the answer, Triple G Farms. I prefer chili with beans. I prefer Wolf Brand chili with beans. I was watching Steve Smith on his channel. He was talking about he prefers Hormel chili without beans. I think everybody has their favorites. I prefer Wolf Brand with beans. Now, last week in my haul video, the one that was for, what was it, let me see, 24, 817 or 818. I'm sorry, 317, I believe it was. I showed that I picked up a case of Wolf Brand chili without beans because they were on sale, really good sale at Sam's Club. And I also picked up a case of, I forget who it was, but I picked up a case of pinto beans. And so what I'll do is I'll mix the two of those together. And typically what we do here is that's one of our, we don't feel like cooking nights. We're going to go through a can of Wolf Brand chili and 2 cups of rice and just eat chili and rice. And so that's one of our staples here. Yes. So we do. If I showed you the number of 2-liter bottles that we have, actually, what I use is I use these. So once I finish drinking this, and that's 88 cents a bottle at Walmart, then we will wash those out and we'll put those in our water supply system. The 2-liter bottles, when we wash those out, we use those for rice and beans and things like that because they have a pretty good seal on them. So we can put I have a vacuum sealer system. I'll try to look for it on Amazon, see if they still have it. But it's basically you put a pinhole in the top of this cap, here, and then it has this hinge that has a glue part, a sticky part down below, so that the hinge lays on top of the bottle or on top of the cap. Then it has this big syringe that you push down to suck air out. So as you push down, the flap lifts up, it sucks air out, and then when you let go of the pressure, it closes because you've got a vacuum on the inside. And so that's what we use to vacuum seal our rice and beans in the 2-liter Coke bottles. Manual pump will do you extremely well. Good question. Uh, I will tell you mine. If we have nukes inbound, I am heading either to Academy or to Walmart because I think everybody else is going to be running for shelter. And so I'm going to try to get as much stuff as I can. So at Academy, I'm going to focus on fuel, and that's going to be the 1-pound butane tanks. It's going to be the Sterno cans. If I can get any of their camping foods, extra rifles, pistols, ammunition, because they'll be running away. If I go to Walmart, it's going to be primarily be foodstuffs. Just depends on where the traffic is. But that's kind of what I plan on doing. Is everybody else is going to be heading for the hills. We're outside. I've done so. Nuclear secrecy. There's it's called nukemap.org. But I recommend you go there and then do some playing with even the largest nuclear devices, which are plane delivered, not ICBM delivered, and play with that a little bit. And it takes into account the prevailing winds most of the time and what the fallout pattern is going to be and how long it'll take to get to you from where the explosion is. So figure out where the most likely target is near you. I will tell you that things like Fort Hood are not going to be a target. They are not going to waste a thermonuclear device on an armored division that can't leave the U.S. without shipping or aircraft. What they are going to do is they're going to take out the shipping in the aircraft. and then that armored division is basically useless. And so if they take out the power with that, then they aren't going to have fuel once electricity is gone and everything else. So I would say that if you're close to somewhere like Fort Hood, or if you're close to somewhere, and I just heard that they're going to change the name. The woke people are changing the name because Hood was a Confederate general. Unbelievable. Yes. So, and that's what I'm alluding to is, where are you in comparison to ground zero? What is the size of the device? What are the prevailing winds? Is it an air burst? Is it a ground burst? My personal belief is it's going to be an air burst with minimal fallout. Yeah. Okay. And there are ways you can do that. So the company who installed mine sanitized it the first time. So and then you can put some basically algae eating microbes in your system so that it doesn't get any algae or anything on the inside of it as well. So Diana, too, pray and then find your family. So the question would become one of, how are you going to communicate? Do you have a plan on where your primary points where you're going to get together are going to be, where your meeting point's going to be? So I've developed a sheet, several different sheets, one for my son-in-law, one for my daughter, one for my wife, and one for me, and on what are we going to do, if something happens, if we get news. And so all they have to do is they can go to that plan of, these are the things you need to pick up. And so, some of that focus is going to be on the kids. We've got 2 still in diapers, so we're going to need a lot of diapers, or cloth diapers, or buckets for those cloth diapers, and all that kinds of stuff. So you have to take into consideration the different things that go on with your family. Thank you, Mitch J. I'm glad that I've been of some value to you and that it's helping you out. That's fantastic. Um, um, well, that's great. Yeah. So yeah, 2-liter bottles for food, and then these 1-liter bottles for water. Um, let me see. I have no idea what a 250-pound toad is. Does Amazon sell it? It's basically a large plastic um, container inside a metal wire cage. I don't know if I haven't looked for it on Amazon, but they have everything. I would say you're probably going to find it better at Garden Supply. Not Garden Supply, but Tractor Supply. Well, that all depends, Grateful Preps. So let's say that it happens right now. They say we're sitting here, and all of a sudden the emergency alert system, the EAS, comes on, and so it goes beep, beep, beep. Enemy missiles inbound. You have 30 minutes. Seek shelter now. So do you think that those people working at the stores are going to be thinking about locking the store, or are they going to be thinking about getting home to their family? My personal opinion, they're going to just leave. They're going to skedaddle as quickly as they can to get home, to be with their loved ones, and do what they need to do to take care of their family. And whereas those of us who are a little bit more knowledgeable about what the targets might be, we're going to have a little bit of extra time to get some extra things last minute that we did not have before. Yes, so the small Coleman tanks, propane tanks, and that's basically, I got a Sterno tank in my haul that I just released here just before the live. I got at Walmart, I got 2 of the Sterno alcohol type safe heaters. They're in the little cans. You use them in the safe heat and chafing dishes and stuff like that. You can also use them in the Sterno stove out camping. And then I got 1 gallon, or not 1 gallon, but it's a quart canister of butane that goes in my single burner stove. And I'll be doing a video on that here in the very near future as well. Tracy says she's not going anywhere, and that makes sense. That's fantastic idea. Yeah, I would say boiling it's going to be important. But then you've got some other considerations, and that is what are you going to use for a heat source? I would love to get a distillation system. What am I going to use for a heat source to keep it boiling so that you can distill the water? Adding bleach to it is going to be one way of getting rid of the protozoa and the amoeba and things like that. And then, of course, boiling it's going to do the same thing. Then you're still going to want to filter it through at least a coffee filter or a bandana or a t-shirt or something like that, because you still could have some other dissolved solids that are still in there that you're going to want to separate out through a filtration process. But yeah, I mean, bleach and water, that's pretty much, we had little pills that we put in the water in the military, and 2 pills per canteen. But it was basically a form of bleach. Well, that would be fantastic. And that's not a bad idea, Simon, because if you go to the Walmart for shelter, then you've also got access to a lot of other stuff there in the store, for food, sanitation, and stuff like that, and drinking. And there'll probably be all kinds of water and other things. Wine is another form. So remember that up until the time that we understood amoeba and protozoa and everything else, people haphazardly came upon how to make water potable. And so what they did was they either warmed it up and made it into tea or coffee. And what does that do? You're boiling it, so you're getting rid of some of the diseases. Or they distilled it. So you had beer, wine, and spirits. And people drank those primarily because they'd get sick if they drank the water. So, either filtration or distillation or fermentation, and you make water clean. And so those are the 3 ways you're going to have, Yes, I absolutely. You're going to want to stay away from any U.S. Navy port. I think they are all going to be targets, and I also think that any Air Force base you want to stay away from. That's going to be a major target. I would not be surprised to find out that the top 10 population centers in the U.S. are not targets. And then what are some of the hubs as far as technology, communications, banking, things like that? Those are going to be centers as well. One of the things we made a mistake of in World War II, and we didn't realize it until after World War II was over, we kept bombing all the German factories, and it didn't do us any good. They just pop up somewhere else. What we needed to do, we did it in Norway, and we didn't learn our lesson and do it in Europe, in Germany as well. But in Norway, we took out their power plants. And it doesn't matter where you move the factory to. If it doesn't have power, it doesn't have power. We did not do that in Germany. We failed to take out their power plants. We went straight for the factories. And so I think that that's going to be one of the things that they're going to go after, is other than nuclear. They'll go after the power plants as well. I think that would be a wise decision. Let me see. Large plastic container that has a metal cage around it. Yeah, so that's the crate she's talking about. My favorite rifle setup. Well, gosh, it depends. I'm a Mini 14 guy myself. I bought a Mini 14. I have one of the lowest serial number of Mini 14s you're going to find, and I've had it for a long time. I like the M14 setup. Just love it. And then I have a Vortex scope on it. I also have a Vortex scope, a Hog Hunter scope, low light Vortex, on my Ruger Gunsight Scout. So that's a magazine fed bolt action 308, and I love it. Gosh, I guess I could say an AR-15 platform only because that's what I had in the military for 21 years, and I can probably disassemble it and assemble it in my in my sleep in less than a minute, and so I think it's a great platform. I think it's a great system. Um, I would put a good scope on it. 30 round magazine, of course, is extremely nice. The biggest advantage of an AR-15 platform is going to be the weight of the ammunition, the size of the magazines, the portability of it, the adaptability of it. And there are so many great manufacturers out there nowadays. I can't find fault with it, but I'm kind of a big bore guy myself. I like the 308. Uh, I do like the 223. I have the Mini 14. So, that's kind of where I am. Um, I also find an awful lot of value in a shotgun. So a 12 gauge shotgun is a pretty good thing for me. Um, yeah. So I think she said it was 150 gallons and 8 pounds per gallon. So we're looking at 900 gallons, I believe, if the math is right in my head. Let's see, 300 times, no, 1,200 gallons, 1,200 pounds. Wow. Great, Mitch. I think you made a wise decision. Um, yeah, and so Greyhound Station would be probably a good place, except unless they have the open area uh, barnyard where where the buses are. But that would probably be a good place to go. Um, I would try to see if they don't have a back area without windows and things like that. Um, we when I was working at Dell, we had just finished building Dell One, so we built them in reverse order, 3, 2, 1, and one was the one where Michael was upstairs, and he walked by my desk every morning going to his office upstairs. We had a tornado warning during when it was the uh, Gerald tornado, the one that one of the strongest ones ever to hit the U.S. And it broke into three, and so one of those came down towards Dell campus in Round Rock, and they put us all down in the basement, and we went down to the basement. It's built into the side of a hill, and 3 walls glass. And I said, I'm not staying here. I went back into the restroom, all the way back up towards inside the hill. But you want to get away from anything glass. You want to make sure you have as much mass in between you and the outside as possible, because that's going to protect you from the radiation. Remember, the 3 things you want to protect you from radiation are time. So the longer you are away from that, the more decay happens. So, the half-life. Distance. So of course, the further away you are, number one, it's going to spread out. So you're only going to get, and they do an inverse square. So if you're like X plus 1 distance away from the blast, then, or you're 2 kilometers away instead of 1, then you're going to have the inverse, which is 1/2, and that's going to be squared. So you're going to receive 1/4 of the radiation at 2 miles that you receive at 1 mile, because it's spreading out. And then of course you've got the time that it takes to get there as well. So time, distance, and then the third one is mass. How much of a barrier do you have to absorb that radiation between you and the radioactive item? So I think that may be correct. I'm not one. I think it's 1 capful, which is equivalent to 8 drops. Um, let me see here. Oh, okay. So another Mini 14 guy. Yep. Okay. Yeah, let me know when you do. 30-06 is an outstanding round. You know, I made a big mistake prior to the cough, And I said that if there ever is a shutdown, a lockdown, or anything like that, that the hunting calibers would be the calibers that are out there, because there's just so many guns that are in the hunting calibers. And at that time, right at the beginning of the lockdown, 6.5 Creedmoor had just really come to prominence. And it seemed like everybody was getting 6.5s, and 6.5 Creedmoor ammunition was just unbelievable. Then when we had the lockdown, you could not find 6.5 Creedmoor ammunition at all. I couldn't find 30-30 Winchester. I couldn't find 270 Remington. I couldn't find 357 38 Special. I couldn't find 45 ACP. What I could find, and then it was usually a max of 1 or 2 boxes at a time, and was I could find the NATO calibers. So 308, 7.6251, 5.56, 223, and then 9mm. You could find those in abundance, and of course shotgun rounds you could find in abundance. But the rest of it was really hard to find. I had a friend who had just bought a 4570, and he could not find 4570 at all anywhere. So, the common hunting rounds, 30-06 being probably the best one of them. Of course, it was also the M1 Garand and the M1903 Springfield. So it was a fantastic military round. Just could not be found. Now, I was watching God Guns and Family. Mark with God Guns and Family. He was talking. He goes in and interviews Maggie, who has a gun store in Missouri, southwestern Missouri, just southeast of Kansas City, and they were talking about this very thing. They were talking about which gun is making a comeback, and the 6.5 Creedmoor is making a comeback. And she was pointing out that everything is extremely regional. She says, because they have a high concentration, they're in a rural area, they have a high concentration of farmers and hunters, 30-06, 270, 6mm, 7mm. Those are all very popular rounds that she can't keep in stock because people buy them out as soon as she gets them in. So, it all depends on where you are. I think in an urban area, it's going to all be NATO ammunition. Yeah. We can say that, but they were converting over from the M14 to the M16 when I got drafted. So I don't know the answer to that, little lone prepper. I will say that it's better than nothing. Aluminum foil has a better mass than does, say, glass or even a blanket or anything like that. So you're going to just get as much mass as you can. So I think you're talking about a metal, so that's probably going to be a little bit denser, have a better protection factor than will anything else that you can get available. I heard a really good discussion on a channel, and I think it was JJ Johnson on Reality Survival, and somebody was saying, or maybe it might have even been here, somebody here, maybe it was Hello Tofu, was saying, what about those lead aprons that you wear when you're in the dentist chair and they take your x-rays? And what a great idea. That's lead. That's the one thing that definitely protects you against any kind of radiation. So maybe get 4 or 5 of those. Are available on Amazon. I think they're kind of expensive, about $100 each. But you can get 4 or 5 of those and layer a small cubicle, where you can have as a designated safe area. And that would do extremely well as far as protecting you from radiation. That's what they're designed for. So are you in the Northwest area bus stop? So, of course, we are right here at the end of Tornado Alley. We have had Snowmageddon now here 2 years in a row. So we've had 100-year freezes. No, I'm sorry, 2021 and 2023. So every 2 years. So 2 years ago we had, and then this year we had what they call a 100-year freeze. That only happens once every 100 years. So it's terrible. The other thing we have to contend with here in Central Texas is abnormal heat and humidity. We can get up to 110, 120 degrees with 80, 85, 90% humidity, and that is horrible. Do I think that we'll have to eventually deal with the war? I believe that eventually it will go where we will either have one of those three that I talked about, either some sort of a cyber attack, we will have some sort of an electromagnetic pulse, or we will have thermonuclear warfare. I don't think, my personal opinion, as of right now, I don't think that a land invasion by either China or Russia is likely. Now, I will say that right now, China is making friends with Central American and South American countries. So once they do that and they develop a port and they have the capability to ship their equipment and troops over to a Central American or South American country, then I would say that we might consider a land invasion. But I don't think that's going to be any closer in the next 2 or 3 years. So that I don't think we're going to see a Red Dawn scenario. Let me put it that way. And that's based upon my analysis as an intelligence analyst of what the composition of an organization is, a tank division or a motorized rifle division, what kind of equipment it has on it, what their airlift capabilities are, what their sea lift capabilities are. Now, with their airlift capabilities, they don't have long-range refuelers like we do. So their aircraft won't even make it halfway across the Pacific. So they'd have to do an Alaska attack, which is kind of crazy. But let's say that they did get some sort of refueling capabilities, then they would make it, let's say, to Washington, and they'd have to refuel to make it back. So, unless they capture like SeaTac or airport or something like that, they aren't going to make it back, and they'd have to refuel halfway back. That's also assuming that 100% of all of their aircraft survive our anti-aircraft defenses. So I don't think that's going to be very likely in the very near future. Let me see here. Simon Templar is going for coffee, and we're about ready we're right at the hour mark, so we probably need to bring this down to a close. That's great, Bust Up. Yeah, I used to be the HR director for the third largest homeless shelter in the U.S. and taking your private property in with you, unless you get there early enough to get a locker and you have a good lock, that's kind of taking things into your own, taking a high probability of it being lost. Hey, Alexander the Great, welcome. Gosh, you've had some good short ones here recently. I hope everybody's following Alexander the Great and her escapades up in Canada. Welcome. And let me see here. Okay. I agree. Anytime you can make it is fantastic. Oh, well, I hope it wasn't too bad. Let me see here. Well, maybe it was the responsible leadership. Like anywhere in the world, there would be calls for peace. Instead, we have warmongers. And isn't that the truth? One of the things I can tell you is, as a professional soldier, the people who want war the least are those of us who have everything put in to the in as far as ante, because we know every time we deploy, there's a chance we won't come back. So we prefer to think that we are securing the peace by our presence and being an opponent to war. That by just having sheer numbers and everything else, that we can avert war, but it looks like that's failing. Wow, there's a good one for everybody to know here. Thank you, Butch. So They have 5/8 inch sheetrock and 1/8 inch lead lighting on the back. So that would be something good. So for you to consider is getting some good sheetrock and some lead backing, and that would do you a fantastic in-home shelter. Alexander the Great, I'm doing fantastic. I had my last acupuncture today, so now it looks like they're going to go for the cortisone injections in my spine. I want to do everything I can to avoid that, but when you have so the breaks that I had from the military are degenerating, and if we don't do something here quickly, I probably won't be walking within another 2 to 3 years. But you know what? Gosh, at my age, I'm just happy to still be here. Um, you know, considering where I've been and what I did for a living, I'm just very lucky to be here now, regardless of the shape I'm in. So I'm very, very thankful of that. And I think those of you who have had military service know what I'm talking about. We're just thankful. Okay, let me see what we got here. We'll get a couple more, and then we're going to call it a day. Okay. I would like to remind everybody that tomorrow we're going to be doing the makeup, because last Tuesday was my brother-in-law's funeral. So tomorrow we're going to be doing the makeup. We're going to be talking about the Chariot, and which is the bug out vehicle, and we're also going to be talking about intelligence. Get some. So how do you collect intelligence on the enemy in a post-apocalyptic world, and how do you keep your vehicle running? Oh, that is something I did want to mention in this book that we were talking about. One of the things that Dr. Bradley says in this book is that he believes that about 60% of the vehicles will be operational, even the more modern ones, after an EMP. And that the ones that are going to be most affected are going to be the ones that are longitudinally aligned with the beam of the EMP, as well as you get closer to the EMP, it's going to have a stronger signal. So as you get further away, it's not going to be as disruptive to the systems. Then of those, about half of those are going to have some things not working: the clock, the radio, the speedometer. Some of those circuits may be fried, but you might still have your electronic ignition and be able to drive the car. But as we mentioned, you aren't going to have fuel for it. So whatever fuel you have, that's going to be it, unless you siphon it out of other vehicles or get it out of an underground tank. Okay, so I just wanted to add that. And thank you. Remember, tomorrow night we have the Tuesday night book club, and that's going to be those two chapters, The Chariot and Gathering Intelligence in a Post-Apocalyptic World. And that's going to be out of Decline and Decay by A. American and Alan Kay. Then Thursday night is our last Thursday of the month. So we're going to be talking about Resurrecting Home, which is book 5 of the A. American series. Please also don't forget that on the 20th of April, we're going to be discussing book 6 of the Stonemont series. And we're going to have Steve Smith, who is the author of that series, here with us the entire night. He's going to be on screen with me, so he'll be here live. You can ask him questions about the characters, about the development of the novels and everything else. Or he is also an ex-undercover narcotics officer. And he also did some work against some terrorist groups. So you'll prepare those types of questions and then mark your calendars for the 20th of April. Thank you. Always appreciate the thumbs up. Always appreciate you sharing it. We're getting close to 5,000, so I'm getting my 5,000 celebration of 5,000 subscriber giveaway presents going, and I got a whole bunch of them here, so I'll be showing those here in the very near future. Triple G Farms, thank you. You're always so generous and so kind. Really appreciate it. let me see if there's anything else here. So thank you, Hello Tofu, for that. And thank you, Alexandra. Same ditto back to you. I did find 2 new channels. So Alexandra the Great, make sure you subscribe to her. There's another one called High Mileage Prepper. She's here in Central Texas, and she's got a fantastic channel. David Lynn Prepper was on here earlier. He's got a nice little channel going. I would ask you to support him. He's about ready to have his 700 subscriber giveaway. Then the other one I found, oh gosh, what was his name? And I thought I was going to keep it up here so I could tell you. Let me get out of there. He is, no, I didn't. I thought I had it. I wanted to keep him up here so I could tell him about you, but Black Hills Prepper, I think is what he's called. And he's got a brand new channel. I mean, really new, and he's doing a great job. So I would ask you to support him as well. Okay, everybody, that's it. So let me get my people out over here, and we'll go to Exodus, and we're looking at the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verses 24, 25, and 26. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord let his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord look upon you kindly and give you peace. So please, please, please remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. And we need to do that by being kind, polite, and respectful to each other, because that's the only way that togetherness is going to work. Take care. God bless y'all. Please stay safe. Bye-bye.